Why is it that when this Labour government are clearly heading in the wrong direction, which is pretty much on everything so far, they stubbornly hold on to achieve maximum damage before acknowledging error and retracting? It's called stubbornness, which is fine when you're gambling with your own money, but it's totally unacceptable with other people's. Let's take Ed Miliband.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Net zero. When even the world acknowledges the ridiculousness of it and it's retreating and moving away from it, the UK, under the guidance of Ed Miliband, are hurtling towards it, despite projections that it will cost an absolute fortune, all based on science, which, in my view, is not settled. Let's take the manufacturing industry and compare us to France. Net zero has been blamed for, well, the UK paying nearly double the amount that the French pay for their electricity, because unlike France, the UK has a dwindling nuclear energy supply. Why, I hear you ask? Where the French invested heavily in nuclear, the UK did not, and instead relies on a combination of renewables. There's that word again. And we rely on a gas backstop, which is when those unreliable renewables decide that it's not windy enough or sunny enough to provide us with what is needed. Research by the Adam Smith Institute, which is a think tank, said that the UK's manufacturing industry pay about 81% more than their French counterparts for electricity, hardly giving us a competitive edge. And the so-called green jobs, well, they're no good if everyone's out of business. Now, the ASI economist, Mr. Mitchell Palmer, summed it up. He said, wind subsidies, in particular, are driving up electricity prices, especially as wind becomes a more dominant source. Claire Coutinho, Shadow Energy Secretary, said, no country can be prosperous with the highest electricity prices in the world. If we're serious about growth, our absolute priority must be to make electricity cheap. Look, Ed, we don't want electric cars, even though they've tried to force them on us. We don't want heat pumps. They're ineffective given the current housing stock. British Steel is teetering on the edge of closure, our last blast furnace. We've a major glass fibre plant and a chemical facility closing, each largely blaming net zero. And these are just some of the businesses that cite that as their reason. And now we hear that Ed Miliband's hell-bent obsession to hit these green targets are apparently leaving us vulnerable to Russian attack. That's what a former NATO chief has warned. Whilst the Labour Party may have been given a majority to rule, that doesn't give them the mandate to be foolish and play fast and loose with our cash.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Well, coming up, I'm joined by the former Downing Street Director of Communications, James Lyons. James, thank you for joining me. James, look.
Good afternoon.
Net zero. It seems a bit of a blight on our economy. It's costing us a fortune. Are we right, in your view, to be heading in that direction? And given the deadline that we've chosen?
Well, look, I think the first thing to say is there's a very important piece of research in the Adam Smith Institute today. They and Claire Coutinho are absolutely right that high energy prices are very bad for British industry and British business. But actually, if you read the report, I think the whole net zero element is a slight distraction. What they're saying is the energy prices have been driven up by the failure of successive governments to invest in nuclear power. It's nuclear power that has provided cheap, secure energy for the French. They do also rely on renewables. I drove across a lot of France yesterday on the way back from a half-term break, and I can tell you now, the motorways were lined with wind turbines. But it's the big investment they've made over several decades in nuclear power that has provided them with a much lower energy prices.
Yeah, now I kind of point that out there as well, that's why, and I do get it, because, that seems to be a wise way to go forward. But we didn't invest in that, so it cost us a fortune to do that right now, even though I suspect we will be going in that direction. But what about?
Well, I mean, we are very much going in that direction. So the government has committed to completing Hinkley Point C. They're supporting Sizewell C, and they are also investing in small and medium-sized reactors, which will hopefully be much faster to come online and produce cheap energy than the kind of traditional big reactors.
But as I understand it, that will almost be kind of a bridging gap until we can use more kind of renewable stuff. So that will be, because you can only use so much nuclear energy. Isn't that also something that can run out too?
The French have around 60% of their energy provided by nuclear power. In this country, it's in the sort of mid-teens. So there's a huge capacity there. And I think that is where, a lot of government effort is focused.
Yeah, a lot of the effort is focused there, but it's also focused quite heavily on renewables and things like wind turbines, which obviously this place is quite windy, but we, when it's not windy, it's no good. But they're investing in huge infrastructure to try and transport that energy. And a lot of people are just looking at that thinking, look, is this really the right way forward, and forcing us all into using electric, which, again, it's one source. At least if you had gas, you have another option as well.
Well, look, I mean, part of the problem is we are still reliant on the expensive, as you said, the expensive gas backup system. What I'm trying to point out here is that France have made this kind of transition to electric, and they've done it through much bigger investment in nuclear power. This government has, this country has talked a lot about investment in nuclear power for a very long time, and not put its money where its mouth is. And that is what we're now seeing with this government, is that they are determined to address the nuclear gap that we do have in our generation.
Yeah, it takes a while though, doesn't it, to build a nuclear power plant, and they're extremely expensive, aren't they?
Well, as I was saying, one of the interesting things that the government are doing is the investing in small and medium-sized nuclear reactors, which are much cheaper and faster to build. I think there's a partnership with Rolls-Royce to create one, and that does offer, in the medium term, a kind of way out here. And it's also worth pointing out, the government have taken action on domestic energy bills. So as a result of some of the moves in the budget, domestic, the households will see their energy bills come down by an average of £150 a year.
But presumably that's going to have to be paid back by the taxpayer in one form or another. That's not, it's great if you'll get this benefit, but ultimately the taxpayer will end up paying.
That's for everyone, not just for targeted. That's not the kind of targeted household support that also exists. That is on the average energy bill. As I understand it, that's from cutting some of the kind of green levies that were on the bills in the first place.
Yeah.
So look, I think there's a good direction of travel here. As I say, we've only got around 14 to 16% of our energy produced by nuclear, in comparison to France, which has got 60%. We need to cut the red tape, we need to get the investment in, and we need to build more nuclear reactors.
All right, James Lyons, thank you very much for your thoughts on that as well. Much appreciated. That is James Lyons. He's the former Downing Street Director of Communications. Really good to talk to you this afternoon.